Julian Sterling's voice, sharp as shattered glass, cut through the sterile silence of the conference room. He slid the bound proposal back across the polished mahogany table, the motion both dismissive and final. He declared the proposal fundamentally flawed, a useless collection of words, and labeled its author, Liam Hayes, an incompetent waste of space. He suggested, with no hint of irony, that Liam would be more suited to a career in sanitation. Liam maintained a placid smile, but a storm brewed beneath the surface. In a private group chat with his colleagues, he vented his fury, typing that their boss's mouth was a toxic waste dump and that if he couldn't speak like a human being, he should donate his tongue to science. Someone, a traitor in their midst, took a screenshot and sent it directly to Julian. The next time Liam saw him, Julian's eyes were rimmed with red, his knuckles white as he clenched his fists. He informed Liam that his paycheck for the month had been forfeited. That night, to cover his rent, Liam was back on his bike, navigating the steep hills of San Francisco for a food delivery app. A late-night order popped up, not for food, but for an item from a boutique novelty shop. He grimaced at the product description. The Stallion XL, maximum gauge. The username was TopGun24cm. A man of refined tastes, clearly. The address led him to a luxury apartment building in Pacific Heights. When the door swung open, he was confronted by a familiar face. Julian Sterling, fresh from a shower and wrapped in a plush white robe, stared back at him. Water droplets clung to his dark hair, his expression shifting from confusion to a deep, crimson blush. For a moment, the high-powered, insufferable executive was gone, replaced by someone utterly mortified. Liam's gaze dropped from Julian's shocked face to the discreetly packaged item in his own hand, then back up. He couldn't stop the words from escaping. He asked if Julian was gay. Julian snatched the package from his hand, his composure returning in a wave of cold fury. He warned Liam that if a single word of this ever escaped his lips, his career, and likely his physical well-being, would be over. The heavy door slammed shut, narrowly missing Liam's nose. Liam stood in the hallway, stunned, an inexplicable current of excitement running through him. The following day, during the weekly team meeting, Julian was at the head of the table, commanding the room with his usual flawless presentation. Liam found his attention drifting, his eyes drawn to the way Julian's tailored black slacks fit. The curve was impeccable. Julian's sharp gaze suddenly locked onto him. He demanded to know why Liam was staring. Liam, without thinking, replied that his assets were very well defined in those trousers. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. Co-workers exchanged wide-eyed glances. Liam felt a cold dread wash over him. Julian took a slow, deep breath, failing to contain his anger. He dismissed everyone from the room, his voice dangerously low. Everyone except Liam. Once they were alone, the heavy oak door clicking shut, Julian advanced on him, his polished leather shoes echoing on the floor. He moved like a predator, his eyes narrowed. Liam, desperate to salvage the situation, blurted out the first defense he could think of. He declared a lifelong aversion to gay men, especially, he added for effect, Julian's particular brand of flamboyant elitism. He insisted he'd sooner be interested in a stray dog than in his boss. Julian's face darkened, but then a slow, cruel smile spread across his lips. He said that was a relief to hear. Then he ordered Liam to get back to work and forbade any slacking. The punishment wasn't termination, but a deluge of menial, time-consuming tasks. At 2 in the morning, Liam was still at his desk, bleary-eyed, while Julian, looking infuriatingly energetic, demanded fresh coffee. 1 cup was too hot. the next too cold. The third was too bitter. Julian questioned if Liam's brain had simply ceased to function. He ordered him to make another, and another. As Liam carried the fifth attempt, his hand trembled with exhaustion and rage, sending the scalding liquid cascading down the front of Julian's crisp white shirt. For a moment, there was only the sound of Julian's sharp hiss of pain. The wet fabric clung to his skin, revealing the defined musculature of his chest and the sharp line of his collarbones. Liam found himself swallowing hard, his mouth suddenly dry. Julian, clutching his chest, his eyes watering slightly, glared at him. He accused Liam of doing it on purpose and demanded he go buy a replacement shirt immediately. Liam spread his hands in a gesture of helplessness, reminding Julian that he had no money, thanks to his salary being docked. Sighing in exasperation, Julian pulled out his phone and sent a mobile payment. Seconds later, Liam's phone screen lit up with a notification banner large enough for Julian to read from across the desk. Cosmic Kingbottom has sent you 150. A dangerous silence fell. Julian's eyes were wide, his face slowly turning from pale to a furious shade of red. Liam fought to suppress a grin, feeling the corners of his mouth twitch uncontrollably. Before he could enjoy his victory, Julian closed the distance between them in 2 swift strides, his face inches from Liam's. He asked, his voice a low growl, how Liam knew. Liam's heart hammered against his ribs. He managed to stammer out the delivery app username. Julian's eyes, magnified slightly by his designer glasses, held a sly, predatory glint. He glanced down pointedly before asking if Liam could compete with that number. Without thinking, Liam responded with his own measurement. The moment the words left his mouth, he wanted to die. Julian's lips curved into a triumphant, wicked smile. He pressed further, asking about other dimensions. Liam scrambled backwards, knocking into a chair. He insisted vehemently that he was straight, that he would never, ever be interested in that kind of activity. He practically fled the office, Julian's rich, mocking laughter echoing behind him. It dawned on him later, lying sleepless in his bed, that Julian knew he was bluffing about his homophobia and was now deliberately tormenting him. A few days later, they were on a business trip to meet a client, a Mr. Daniels. Daniels was a mountain of a man, tall and broad-shouldered in an impeccable suit. Throughout dinner, when the meeting concluded, Julian draped an arm over Daniels' shoulders and announced that Liam should book 2 rooms for the night. One for himself, and one for Julian and Mr. Daniels. Daniels, for his part, patted Julian's back with a fond smile. Julian explained they were old friends with a lot of catching up to do. Liam's mind filled with a rage he couldn't quite understand. Later that night, unable to sleep, Liam pressed his ear against the adjoining wall of his hotel room. He could hear excited shouts from next door. "Come on, baby, I'm wide open," followed by cries of "He's flanking me. I'm going down. Save me." The sounds were desperate, ecstatic. Liam's imagination ran wild. He couldn't let this happen. He had to save Julian's honor. He stormed out of his room and pounded on their door. He tried offering to get them food. He tried inventing an urgent work emergency. Finally, hearing a climactic cry of "I'm dying, I'm dying," he lost all control and began hammering on the door, shouting that he was hotel security investigating a disturbance. The door flew open. Julian stood there, his face a mask of thunder, a gaming headset around his neck. "What is your problem?" he seethed. His eyes were bright with anger, his lips parted. Liam stammered that he was worried, that he thought Mr. Daniels might be taking advantage of him. Julian stared at him, then let out a short, sharp laugh of disbelief. He informed Liam that Mr. Daniels was his cousin. From behind him, Daniels peered out, a controller in his hand, asking if everything was okay. They were in the middle of a team deathmatch. The realization crashed down on Liam, flooding his face with heat. Julian stepped closer, the clean scent of his cologne filling Liam's senses. He warned Liam that his personal life was none of his business, and if he ever interfered again, he would be fired. That night, Liam dreamed he was pinning Julian down, finally venting all his frustrations. In the dream, Julian was pliant and soft, calling him daddy and begging him not to stop. He was leaning in, his hand tracing the curve of Julian's spine, when a furious shout ripped him from his sleep. "Liam, what the hell are you doing?" He blinked his eyes open. Julian was standing over his bed, fully dressed, his arms crossed. He demanded to know whose backside Liam had been yelling about wanting to Rua. The dream had been so long, it was already noon. Liam scrambled out of bed, apologizing profusely, babbling about his undying professional respect for his boss. Julian just scowled, told him to get dressed or they'd miss their flight. Liam spent 10 minutes in a cold shower, trying to quell the fire that the dream had started. The cold shower had consequences. He was back in his apartment for less than a day before a fever took hold. He texted Julian to call in sick. Hours passed with no reply. Then, 15 minutes later, his doorbell rang insistently. He dragged himself to the door to find Julian standing there, holding a bag from a pharmacy. Julian strode past him, announcing he was just there to make sure Liam hadn't died yet. He prepared a packet of powdered cold medicine, but handed it to Liam while it was still scalding hot. Liam took a sip and immediately spat it out, all over Julian's shirt. Julian stood, dripping, frozen in sheer rage. "I should have let you perish," he growled, before stripping off the ruined shirt and demanding to know where the shower was. As the water ran, Liam's mind once again filled with vivid, unwanted images. He was frantically trying to push them away when Julian's annoyed voice called out, asking for a towel. Liam grabbed one and passed it through a crack in the door, but Julian complained he couldn't reach it. Liam had to bring it inside. He squeezed his eyes shut and stepped into the steam-filled room. The tiled floor was slick with condensation. His foot slipped. The world tilted, and he collided with a warm, damp surface. He found himself sprawled atop Julian, his face pressed against the soft, resilient curve of his boss's backside. He felt a distinct, involuntary response from his own body. In that moment of mortifying, undeniable arousal, he knew he was completely, irrevocably bent. Julian scrambled away, quickly dried himself, and fled the apartment without another word. Back at work, Liam avoided Julian at all costs. To force himself back onto the straight and narrow, he accepted a coffee date with Jessica, a new intern who had left a hopeful note on his desk. His colleagues buzzed with the news. As they were gossiping, Julian appeared as if from nowhere, his face like a thundercloud. He berated the entire department for wasting company time and docked everyone's performance bonus for the month. Later, Jessica went into Julian's office to drop off a file and emerged in tears. Liam went to comfort her, and she collapsed against his chest, sobbing that Julian had called her an idiot and said she and Liam were a perfect match of brainless fools. An unholy rage surged through Liam. He was muttering a string of creative curses under his breath when a cold voice cut in from above. "Liam, my office. Now." He looked up to see Julian glaring down at him. In his office, Julian gestured to a contract stained with coffee. He stated that Jessica had ruined an important document, and his criticism was justified. Liam tried to defend her, saying she was new and deserved some leeway. Julian's anger only intensified. He asked why Liam was so invested in her. The silence was answer enough. Julian turned to his computer and typed furiously. He printed a document and slid it across the desk. A termination notice. For Jessica, with a severance package worth 5 times her salary. Liam, bewildered and emboldened, decided he'd had enough. He stormed back into Julian's office to quit, only to find him in a meeting. As he backed out, the other man in the room called his name. "Son, what are you doing here?" It was his father. Julian looked between them, completely stunned. Liam's secret was out. He wasn't a struggling worker. He was the heir to a corporate empire, hiding out from an arranged marriage his father was trying to force on him. His father, delighted by the coincidence, clapped Julian on the shoulder and told his old friend to work his rebellious son to the bone. The workload tripled. Liam was exhausted, but every time he mentioned quitting, Julian would threaten to call his father. One night, after they finished a massive project at 3 in the morning, Julian offered a rare compliment. He asked what Liam wanted as a reward. Liam looked at Julian's lips, felt that familiar heat rise within him, and leaned in and licked them. Julian froze, his ears turning bright red. Liam took the stunned silence as an invitation. He pressed forward, capturing Julian's mouth in a bruising kiss. Julian tasted as good as he had imagined. When Liam finally pulled back, Julian was breathless. Liam demanded to know what was happening between them. Julian, flustered, tried to pull rank, but Liam accused him of deliberately seducing him, wearing tight pants, flaunting his beauty, teasing him relentlessly. Julian, overwhelmed by Liam's bizarre but accurate logic, told him to get out. Liam moved closer, pressing his hand to Julian's chest, asking if Julian could deny his own interest. He then whispered that the age gap, the forbidden nature of their dynamic, was incredibly exciting. He didn't wait for an answer. He pushed Julian back against the massive oak desk and kissed him again, this time with a desperate hunger. The desk began to shake violently under their weight. Julian finally gave in, his hands tangling in Liam's hair. The moment was shattered when the office door swung open, revealing a crowd of their co-workers, who had mistaken the noise for an earthquake. "My God," someone whispered. Julian buried his face in his hands, utterly mortified. Liam, equally embarrassed, tried to cover them both with his jacket. A new voice cut through the stunned silence. It was Liam's father, pushing his way through the crowd. He stopped dead, his eyes bulging as he took in the scene of his son entangled with his business partner. A sharp, piercing scream escaped his lips as he unbuckled his belt. The beating Liam received back home was brutal. His father, fueled by rage and an energy drink, whipped him until his mother's frantic pleas finally made him stop. Liam refused to apologize, insisting that he loved Julian. His father, defeated, locked him in a spare room, vowing to keep him there until he came to his senses. After several days of pain and starvation, Liam escaped, climbing out a 4th-story window and dropping the last 10 feet. His ankle twisted upon impact, but he ignored the searing pain and limped his way back to the city. He knew Julian would be at the office, a slave to his work ethic. He found him standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a silhouette against the glittering skyline. When Julian turned, his face was weary. He told Liam he shouldn't have come. He produced a document, another termination notice, this one for Liam, with a severance package 10 times the standard. He told him it was over between them, that they should part ways amicably. Liam snatched the paper and fed it into a shredder. He then smashed the office printer for good measure. Julian's eyes filled with tears as he shouted at Liam to be more mature. He said that Liam's father knew, that everyone knew, about their shameful affair. Liam grabbed his lapels, insisting it was love, not shame. Julian just laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. He said he was just playing, that Liam's performance was subpar and he was bored now. He told him to get lost. The words were like knives. Liam broke down, sobbing against Julian's chest, begging him not to leave him. He promised to get better, to do anything. Julian pushed him away firmly, his expression cold and remote. He called Liam a child. Heart shattered, Liam swore that Julian would regret this and stormed out. When he arrived back home, his leg throbbing, he told his shocked parents to arrange the marriage. The sooner, the better. He sent a wedding invitation to Julian himself. Julian came. He looked perfect and haunted, dark circles under his eyes. As Liam stood at the altar beside his veiled bride, his heart hammered in his chest. Julian was doing nothing. He was just watching, his face a blank mask. The officiant prompted the groom to kiss the bride. Wait. Julian's voice was quiet but carried through the silent church. He strode up the aisle, his eyes locked on Liam. The bride asked what was going on. Julian pointed at Liam and told her plainly, "He's gay. You marry him, you'll be signing up for a life of celibacy." A murmur went through the crowd. Liam's father began to shout, but Julian ignored him. He declared to everyone that he hadn't come to celebrate a wedding, but to stop one. Because he and Liam's father's son were the perfect match. Tears streamed down Liam's face. Julian took his hand. "You win, you little brat," he whispered, a smile finally breaking through his pained expression. "I haven't slept in days." The bride threw her hands up and cheered. In a private office, Julian laid out a business proposal for Liam's father. An outrageously generous partnership. 60% for the Hayes Corporation, 40% for his. His father raised an eyebrow. Julian adjusted his glasses. "It's a dowry," he said, "for your son." Liam started to object that he was the one on top, but a sharp look from his father silenced him. His father tried to refuse, talking about the family line, but when Julian revised the offer to 80-20, he signed the papers so fast the pen smoked. Back in Julian's office, the door was locked. Julian collapsed onto the sofa, clutching his chest theatrically. He complained that Liam was a very expensive husband. Liam just grinned, straddling him. "I'm the husband," he corrected, leaning in. Suddenly, he paused. "Did you lock the door this time?" Julian smiled, a slow, wicked curl of his lips. "3 locks," he purred, pulling a pair of leopard print handcuffs from his desk drawer. "And the lying little groom is about to be punished." He was about to snap them on Liam's wrists when a muffled whisper came from the other side of the door. "Is it starting? Are they on the couch?" Julian froze. He got up, strode to the door, and yanked it open. A half-dozen female employees tumbled into the room in a heap. He glared down at the tangle of limbs, his face black. "Back to work," he commanded, "or you're all fired." They scattered like mice. The world was finally quiet. Julian turned back to Liam, the predatory glint returning to his eyes. Soon, the office was filled with a different kind of sound. "Gently, Julian, have some mercy." "Mercy? After you called my performance subpar? You have a long memory, little dog. I'll make it up to you, I swear." "Oh, you will."